We good?
We are good, Madam Chair. The meeting is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 28th, 2023 meeting of the Temporary Traffic Safety Committee. I'm going to kick it off with the act, the COVID Act, pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Act of 2022, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on July 16th, 2022. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed and you will have no public participation, but I hope everybody watching is enjoying it this evening. We'll kick off this meeting with our roll call. I'll say your name. Please state whether you're here. Bill Pierce.
Here.
Mitch Cohen.
I'm here.
Mark McMenemy.
I'm here.
Janine Callahan.
Here.
Chris DeCitis.
Here.
I'm Laura Zeiton. I am here, and Scott Charpentier on behalf
Present.
of the DPW.
Thank you.
It's great to see everyone again. Thank you so much. We'll get started on our agenda, and I look forward to sharing this time with you. Our first order of business this evening is acceptance of the February 28th, 2023 meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Would somebody like to second it?
Second.
So we have a motion in place to approve the minutes from February 28th. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review them. Does anybody have any feedback or revisions they'd like to make added to the minutes? Hearing none, it sounds like I would like to request that someone make a motion to approve the minutes.
Just did.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So this is a roll call vote to approve the minutes. Bill Pierce.
Aye.
Mitch Cohen.
Aye.
Mark McMenemy.
Aye.
Janine Callahan.
Aye.
Chris DeCitis.
Can I vote on that if I wasn't present at the last meeting?
Not yet.
Generally speaking, if you watched the meeting, then you can attest to the minutes accuracy. You can vote yes. If you didn't watch the meeting or you're not sure, you can abstain.
I'll abstain. I did not watch.
Thank you. That sounds great. And I, Laura Zeiton, also am an aye, and we will move on to the next topic on our agenda. This evening, we are again discussing a consideration of the recommendation for a permanent traffic safety committee membership. This topic is going to look at who's going to be included in it, and I just wanted to open that discussion up. I know that we went around the horn a couple times last month at our last meeting, so I just wanted to open up that conversation and see if anybody, upon some thoughts, had some ideas about what they would like to see from a membership perspective. Bill.
I know we were talking about at one point who would be the interview committee and who would be making the recommendations. I still think that we should have one from the planning board just for zoning purposes, in case there are any zoning changes or any changes that need to be made that the planning board needs to either be aware of or modify. But I think the majority of them should probably come from the Board of Selectmen. Interested in everyone else's thoughts on that.
Does anyone else have? Yeah, Mitch?
Yeah, it's suggesting that the planning board appoint one of the five, assuming there are 5 members, the planning board appoints one of the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Did anybody else have any thoughts on those? Perfect. And I do agree with you, Bill. I think that makes a lot of sense. So unless anybody has any other changes, I think we'll update the membership to include 4 appointed by the Board of Selectmen, 1 appointed by the Planning Board, and then we'll plan on presenting that to the Selectmen when we make our final recommendation. Do I need to do a roll call on that, Mitch?
I don't think, eventually we need to vote on what we are presenting to the board. We don't have to vote on it piece by piece.
Okay, sounds
good. Vote on the whole thing at the end. My only thought is, we talked a little bit last time about trying to make sure that the members have some diversity as far as geographic location and anything else. Do we want to make that explicit in the recommendation to the board as far as a priority in looking at membership, or do we want to sort of leave it to the board and the planning board to sort that out?
I would think leave that to the planning board, because I think what's most important is just having people who are, enthusiastic and really interested in it, because, it might be hard to do that across the town. But, I think it's really up to the entire committee at that point, just to make sure that, anything we do decide, or that they do decide at that point, is kind of spread across the town, and every area of the town is taken into consideration at that point.
I tend to agree. Oh, sorry, Bill?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But I think there should be, it should be noted that there should be a preference to keep, one person maybe from each voting district or something like that, as, but, sort of weight the scores, right? So if you've got 3 people that apply, one of them is from a voting district that you don't have anyone currently on the board, and the other 2 do, then you sort of weight that person above the others, because you do want to sort of get a general overview from the entire town.
Yeah, I'm not sure if voting district is it's a convenient way to divvy it up, but I don't know if it's that practical, because, I would think downtown, of which all 4 voting districts have sort of teeth into downtown, versus the Green Street area versus the Bartlett area, and so forth. I think, and I also think there are other things that aren't geographic, such as, well, if we had a member that rode their bike a lot, that's important. Maybe less important as to geographically where they are, but maybe more where they ride their bike. Or if we had a member that was in a wheelchair all the time, that might have more weight. But I think I would like to have something in there that says, preference. It's advised that preference be given to create a geographically and modally diverse committee. I'm thinking off the top of my head there.
Yeah. No, I agree, because we definitely don't want like 4 people from Whitney Street. Right.
I love those recommendations. So do you think, when we look through our charge and our mission, if we were to add that as a byline, just saying it's not mandatory, but a suggestion that, look at the diversity, look at the different backgrounds that these people are bringing. Hopefully there's such a huge interest in participating in this committee that we'll get a really great selection base, but that way the appointing authorities won't be limited to that. So I'll update the charge with that wording. Well, once we review the charge.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard. It'll be hard to get the wording quite right, but something that softly, not hardly, gets that intent across.
Yeah.
With the understanding that sometimes you can't. Sometimes if there are 1 vacancy and 1 application, and it's a really good person, you may want to take advantage of a full board, even if there's then some segment of town that's not as well represented.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love this discussion, and it's really opened my eyes to all the different, factors that play into this. So I'll update it. We'll make sure that it's not written in such a way that it limits the committee from who they appoint, but we'll at least, I think raising that awareness, these are topics that I don't think I would have ever considered going into this in the first place. So we'll help that learning curve for those that are going to review it in the future. Are there any more thoughts or comments on the membership of the Traffic Safety Committee before we move on to the next item? Yep, Bill?
Do you want to talk about how long, what the term is?
Yep. So we did have, we could certainly talk about that now. So we're going to have 5 members, and typically those membership terms will be scattered so that at one time we're not going to have all the new people or all the people that are on the committee turn over at the same time. So we could start, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but we could do 1, 2, and 3-year terms. That'll mirror what we've done with other committees. What are your thoughts on that?
I think 3-year staggered terms is usually the way it's described. So they're all 3-year terms, but initially there's a 1, a couple of 1s, a couple of 2s, and a 3.
So we want to do
Something
2
like
1s.
that. Yeah, and I would leave that up to the administration office to sort that out as far as how to deal with the first year, because they may have other boards that line up that way for tracking purposes. I'm not sure.
Scott, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a logical approach. The appointing authority can discuss, the interview committee can discuss with the applicants what their interest is. Is it a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year commitment? And then the Board of Selectmen can likely weigh in on that, on which applicants warrant a 3-year term. It's a new committee, maybe somebody who has other previous service on other boards and committees would be logical for a 3-year, so there can be some continuity there. But as Mitch said earlier, maintaining some flexibility in the charge, I think is important, considering the Board of Selectmen is the appointing authority at the end of the day.
Yep. That sounds great. Any last thoughts on that topic before we move along? Sounds good. The next topic on our agenda is a discussion of a permanent traffic safety committee charge. Everybody got a copy of this. Did you want me to read it, or can we just work off of that? Does it need to be read into the meeting, or should we just go into a discussion on it?
Might be good to read it. Just there's no requirement, but for anyone who watches this meeting later,
sounds good.
We don't put agenda packets online yet for this committee. I think it's probably good as a starting point so people can see where we are.
Okay, that sounds great. So to everybody watching today, I'm going to now read the first draft of the charge of the Northborough Traffic Safety Committee. The Northborough Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, NTSAC, aims to promote and enhance the physical, social, and economic environment in which all forms of transportation can work together for a clean, safe, healthy, and vital community. In doing so, we hope to involve every element of the community to contribute to the economic development and well-being of the town of Northborough. The NTSAC will be responsible for promoting enhanced traffic safety in the town by creating a forum where residents can voice concerns, suggestions, and requests. The NTSAC will work with town staff to examine alternatives to existing traffic situations and identify long and short-term solutions to traffic issues in Northborough. NTSAC will also provide community input to the town administrator, select board, planning board, and other town officials, boards, committees, and departments to address residents' requests for improving livability, drivability, and walkability of neighborhood streets in Northborough. Thank you especially to Bill for really taking a great shot at that first draft. I think I would love to open that discussion and gather your feedback and any changes that you'd like to suggest in that. Does anybody have any thoughts? Sure, Scott.
I would just suggest in the last sentence, livability, drivability, accessibility, walkability, just to add accessibility to it.
Okay. Thanks for thinking of that.
We want to include other means of transportation so that you have bikeability and scooterability and hoverboard ability and so forth as things change.
I think that's probably a good idea. I don't know. What do you think, Scott? I mean, it kind of brings it in line a little bit too with the complete streets policy.
I mean, you can identify all different modes of transportation just by intermodal transportation. That term identifies all modes of transportation, public, hoverboards, whatever there is, and it doesn't have to grow with technology. So intermodal transportation, and then you can have focus on things, but generally intermodal covers everything.
Bill, in our last meeting, you had suggested trying to keep this broad enough so it doesn't limit the committee. what are your thoughts on updating that wording?
No, I think that's fine. I think that makes sense. It actually makes it a little bit broader than, what I had originally put. So
That sounds good. So I didn't have any other thoughts, as far as that first draft goes. So I think unless anybody's got any other thoughts, what I'll do with that is I'll update to include those additional wordings or those additional topics in there, as well as that update. And then I'll send that back to the group so that you can take another look at that before our next meeting. So the next item on our agenda is the next step. I've really enjoyed working with everybody on this, and it's really gone a lot, at a great pace. So I'm not really, what are your thoughts as far as our next steps look? I think that getting this information to the selectmen is going to be important, but what are your thoughts about next steps? Mitch, I'll defer to you on that if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean,
on
I would
behalf
say
of the Board of Selectmen.
when this board is done, we vote on making the recommendation, and that's the step. So I would iterate until everyone was comfortable with the result, and that's basically this page. A final version of this page is what we would vote on at the end. And in theory, we first met in January, correct? So we have, if I'm remembering that right, or was it December?
It was
December.
It was December, very end of December.
Yeah, so we said 6 months. So June would be when we'd have to be done, but I think we're moving at an accelerated pace, so there's no reason.
Okay.
Or meeting at least to refine, and then if we were pretty happy at that point, vote on it and be done with it.
So I jumped past a couple of important. Oh yeah, sorry, Scott. What were you going to say?
Laura, if you take the comments and suggestions here, prepare an amended charge, send it over to me. I can get it to the entire committee. Everyone can provide any additional thoughts or comments to me independently. I can compile those, and at a future meeting, there can be a discussion of those comment changes and the potential final draft for deliberation and acceptance. Logistically, that's probably the most appropriate process, and time-wise, it'll work out good because it'll probably go to the select board after town meeting, which will be better time, I think, as far as workload goes.
Oh my gosh.
Agreed.
Definitely appreciate that. So I'm going to go back one step because we dove right into the charge, but there were a couple other, items of importance that I just wanted to make sure that we review before we put the final draft together. So we had decided on the number of voting members as 5 residents appointed by the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board. So we'll update that. We're going to have non-voting members as the DPW and staff as needed. Are there any changes there, or is everybody okay with that? Sounds good. The other topic we had mentioned was budget. We had suggested a small $5,000 budget to be used towards nominal projects. Does that still sound? And then items that are bigger than that, then we'll work with the Board of Selectmen on those bigger initiatives. Did anybody have any thoughts or changes on that? Yeah. Sure.
What we can do for FY24, as the budget was accepted last night, I can allocate independently out of my highway budget $5,000 for disposition by this future committee. Obviously, it's still DPW's budget, but it's $5,000 in a $3 million budget we can manage. And that way in FY25, there can be an actual specific line item for this committee. But in the meantime, at least in FY24, I wouldn't want to see a startup committee feel hand tied without any fiscal support. So I'm committed to that.
Thank you so much. I'll update the budget to reflect that, or should I put that wording in when we look at the final draft here?
I wouldn't include anything about using the DPW budget in the budget, because it should be allocated, and this is just how we would deal with it, because this would be presented to the Board of Selectmen after town meeting and after the FY24 budget would have been voted. So it's just a way to deal with that. I was thinking about that problem. I hadn't thought about or wanted to volunteer your money, so I appreciate I appreciate the DPW director's offering of that. That certainly simplifies the process and allows the permanent version of this committee to get started right away. That's great.
We appreciate it. The other topic was meeting frequency. Does monthly still sound like a good frequency for this committee to be meeting?
So I have a
I agree.
question.
Yeah.
So say today or whenever we choose monthly, can we change that if we feel like that's too often or not often enough? How does that work? Is that just a vote once the permanent committee is in place?
Can it be done kind of like the earthwork board, as like, things kind of come in, then it's kind of an as needed basis, or is there anything special we need to do for that?
I think there are always going to be a number of ongoing issues and initiatives that would justify meeting generally monthly. So I think I like the language that's in there now, monthly or as determined by the committee. That way, if the winter was quiet or the summer was quiet, they could skip a meeting or two. But also, if there is a lot going on and they get a lot of input from the community, they could hold an extra meeting or two as needed. I think if you just say as needed, there might be a tendency for the duration to slip.
And sorry, go ahead.
No.
I guess any consideration, I know one thing that as part of the research, I know there was kind of a once a year meeting with police, fire, and DPW just to kind of review high crash locations or anything, or high problem areas. Is there any consideration for that? Is that something we should put in there as specified, or just kind of dedicate that as needed?
My opinion is not to put it in the charge, but have that be, in the first few meetings of this committee, they will determine the input that they need and on what frequency, and that would be modified over time. It certainly would make sense for them to put something on their annual calendar that says every January or whenever, meet with the police department to get crash data from the prior year.
Okay.
Just as an example.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, but I don't think that needs to be put into that specific into this.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Chris.
Yeah.
The next part of the charge was the routing process for requests. During our last meeting, we discussed this. We just set a web form on the Northborough Town website. Is there a standard, format, your name, your contact information, and the statement of what that request would be, or do we need to actually, give those items to you, Scott?
I think the most appropriate approach is for the permanent committee to determine how that communication gets to them. Where it fits on the website logically would come from staff with the committee's approval. Our information for public works, most people are familiar with it. There is a web forma report. What are you reporting? Is it a tree? Is it a pothole? Is it what have you? That is the simplest version, and there's a more robust version with a dedicated web page and dedicated web form for only the Traffic Safety Committee. Those are staff bandwidth questions for MIS. I'm the DPW director, but if the permanent committee wants it, we'll make it happen. But if they don't and they want something simple, like through the DPW page, that can make that happen as well. So, we're pretty open. Our expertise is not nearly what Amazon's may be, but we have capabilities of what you see on the website, and we can certainly make things work if need be.
That sounds great. I think especially in the beginning, keeping it as broad as possible so that people, until we figure out what the nature of the request is, and then we can improve it from there. But I think just keeping it broad in the beginning is a great idea, and hopefully less heavy lifting for you and the folks that manage those IT pages. And then the last was the mission. I used the similar wording from what Bill had provided, but for the mission of the Northborough Traffic Safety Committee is to improve livability, drivability, and walkability of the neighborhood streets. I'll add that to update accessibility so that it mirrors the overall charge of the committee, but I really think that covers, the broad range of what our goal of this committee would be. Any thoughts?
I think similar to the change we made with the charge is either add intermodal or add other means of transportation, something like that.
Sounds good. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to move on officially to the next topic. Thank you so much for all your feedback on that. And then we'll put together draft 2 and Scott will work to get that out to the rest of the committee. The next, as far as the next step for this committee would be to meet and review that final draft once more before we make the plan to provide that to the selectmen. Have I missed anything on that? No? So if not, the next item on our agenda is picking our next meeting date to go through our second draft of this. I think this monthly basis has been good, although I think a month from now we are going to be in town meeting. So maybe going a little bit after that would work better for everybody.
I would suggest May 2nd. The following Tuesday is the election and we can't have meetings. The Tuesday before will likely be the second night of town meeting. If it isn't, then it'll be a very, very, very long night for everybody here. So May 2nd may be the best.
Good thinking.
Does that work for the rest of the committee?
The planning board actually meets on the first Tuesday of the month, so that would be the planning board meeting. I don't know if we can do the first.
Will that planning board meeting be back at 7 p.m., Bill, or is it going to be an earlier one? Do you know?
I think it's still going to be at 6 o'clock. I don't know. I haven't heard anything if they're going to change anything. So this one is only 7 o'clock because some people had some conflicts.
We could do another night that week, the 3rd, the Wednesday. I'm not sure.
I think we don't have too much going on, so it's just revising that wording. So we don't really even have to wait a month, I don't think.
Well, we did want to wait until after the town meeting, though.
Just because Scott's workload is heavy right now. I'm sure everybody in town hall is.
And I'm sure Mitch's is too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, between all the, not just town meeting stuff, but the town administrator stuff and everything else.
Yeah, hopefully by May, at least there's some momentum on an interim selection or something. So, if we wanted to do at 5:30 on Tuesday and get it done by 6, if that doesn't work for Bill, then Wednesday, the May 3rd, maybe. Or
I think
Thursday.
The 3rd is fine. Unless anyone else has any conflicts.
Sorry, what was that, Bill?
May 3rd.
May 3rd, I would not be able to do.
Okay.
Fortunately.
How about the 4th?
So, oh yeah.
4th is good here, yeah.
Could we do the 2nd at 5 o'clock?
But the planning board, I'm assuming is going to start at 6.
So would an hour give us enough time to review the draft for the last time? And then give you enough time to go to that meeting?
We're half an hour in and we're almost done today.
I don't want to put too much on, but I mean, if we could just get it, that seems like a good date. So if we could make sure, I think for our last visit, our last meeting to review that final draft is going to be a quick one.
Mitch, when does the COVID protocols end? Is that the end of March or the end of May?
As far as remote meetings?
Yeah.
So that has been extended by 2 years. So the legislature, both houses voted on Thursday or Friday, to extend the remote meeting allowance by 2 years until the end of March of 2025. The governor hasn't signed it yet, last I looked, but she has committed to signing it by the end of this week. Currently, it expires the end of this week, but it'll get extended.
My only concern is that, they're going to extend it, but does that mean the town actually does the planning board stay doing that or not? And if not, then, I've got to jump in my car and run to town hall after the meeting.
Yeah, that's up to the planning board to make that decision. There won't be any obligation from the town's end to go back to in person unless the planning board wanted to. It's up to each board and committee to decide.
Would May 4th work better? Bill going 5 till whenever that planning board meeting ends is a lot.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to do that to him. So I think
Fair
May,
enough.
May 4th.
What about the first?
That works
It's
for
a
me.
Monday.
Yeah.
Mitch, you guys aren't meeting till the next Monday, right?
Correct. Yeah, currently I have no meeting scheduled on May 1st.
May Day.
Well, it sounds like that. Does that work for you, Mark?
Yeah,
I heard from Chris and Janine. It sounds like this is a go for everybody then. Can we do the meeting on May 1st then? We'll finalize that as our next meeting date.
At 5:30.
5:30.
That works.
That sounds great. So I'll make sure to get, so that's all good. Our next topic is any other business that may legally come before the committee. I don't have anything. Does anybody else? No. Well, we are at the end of our agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
In a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So it's a roll call vote. First of all, Scott, thank you for hosting this meeting tonight. We appreciate your help and your all the information that you've shared
Thank you.
as we're wrapping up the adjournment. Bill Pierce,
Aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Aye.
Mark McMenemy,
I.
Janine Callahan,
Hi.
Chris DeCitis.
Aye.
I, Laura Zeiton, am also an aye. I hope everybody has a great